I wasn't interested in joining the NHS, and that's kind of the only people that they got in, as well as it was mostly there for like kind of the engineer students. It's a big engineering university, so there was lots of people for engineers, but there wasn't too many for life sciences people coming in. Just weren't attracting them, I guess. I think that advice on what people do as their job and what's actually called, and that connection between the two of those things is something which I still struggle with today, and having that information would be really useful. I think chatting to people with a similar age in your industry is always useful as well. It can be quite tricky if you don't feel like you can ask the honest questions to the people in really high positions, because you don't want to look like an idiot. But if you're someone on who's a peer to you, then I feel like you'll be asking more honest questions, you're going to get more honest answers as well. You've heard of the big names, but there's absolutely hundreds of companies out there, but you don't know where to look to actually find the names of them, because you can't apply for them if you don't know what they're called.
Then some call me low. Hey.
So my name is Stefan. I am a country approval associate for a contract research organisation. I belong to S, and I've been working in the industry for 2.5 years. Okay, so my academic background, I did an undergraduate at the University of Bradford in Biomedical Science. I did this because it covered a wide variety of scientific areas. I was really interested in genetics, oncology, microbiology, and it had all of those things in it, so I didn't feel like I had to choose that early. And then when I got to the end of the degree, I really wanted to work in clinical research, so I applied for a Master of Research at Imperial College in Translational Medicine. So that's the in-between stage of lab and early clinical research, and that's what I did. I wanted to learn more about how you conduct clinical trials. Yeah, so when I was in secondary school doing my A-levels, I was really interested in biology, and particularly in genetics, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to go into it. So it actually came from reading a book. So I was reading a book on early oncology clinical trials, and I found it really fascinating how they designed it and what they did with it, and then just started researching more and more about that, and then I started asking some lecturers about working in that area, and that's kind of how I came to why I wanted to work in it. My mum worked in biotech R&D, and my uncle and auntie also worked in biotech R&D, so it's kind of been in my family for a long time. Understanding that this was a career area which I could work in, and they were always really supportive of me continuing my education and kind of doing what I wanted, and that definitely helped a lot. Work in a slightly different area than they do at the moment, so they were kind of basic science, so they were doing more of the molecule creation and the making of tests, and I've always found it more interesting, the kind of testing on humans and the kind of applications of that. So it's slightly different in that way, but yeah, definitely don't think I would have known much about this industry unless I kind of had family working in there. I feel like, yeah, followed them a little bit in that regards. Not particularly, but so I didn't feel particular pressure. They were always very supportive of me doing whatever I wanted to do. They were always they did apply pressure for me. They've always wanted me to go to university and to carry on my education. They've always seen education as being incredibly important. So that was definitely a big part of what they instilled in me, and they were always very supportive and you should do a master's if you want this to continue. Maybe from wanting me to have more education, and maybe because they maybe knew a bit more about the industry, and maybe saw some roadblocks coming up in my career later if I didn't have that education. So it may have been a little bit of, yeah, I felt like, yeah, I feel like they kind of pushed me more into do more education, but in the end that's something I enjoyed doing as well. So when I was doing my undergraduate, I didn't really have any career expectations for what I was going to do afterwards. I mainly did the degree because it was something I was interested in. I thought I'd do something better at something that I was really interested in, and then I kind of work out what I was going to do with that afterwards. So when I was doing my master's, originally it was to get more education, understand more about clinical research and where I could work in it. I was kind of a little bit off-put by the open-endedness of research while I was doing my research project. It was kind of intimidating just being given a blank title and kind of having to come up with all your own stuff. So I felt like after that I'd kind of done my time doing kind of research, and I wanted to move more into industry after that, and that's kind of where I went after that. So it was lucky enough that most of our lecturers were principal investigators doing clinical trials. We had lots of people on the course who were clinical trial coordinators, research physicians, research nurses. So there was a lot of people who already worked in the industry, so it gave you an idea of what the job titles were called, if nothing else, and what they did a little bit more as well. So I learned a lot from my fellow students as well in that course as well. I didn't find it too difficult. It was like it was applying and an interview, but the interview was kind of relaxed. I kind of were more interested in what area you do your research in, rather than kind of testing your acumen. I think they were quite happy if you got a reasonable degree, undergraduate degree, that they'd be happy to have you on in their master's program. I didn't have a huge, because it was a biomedical science degree, they were quite geared into either going into PhD or going into academia or working as a biomedical scientist. University of Bradford is also quite a small university, so they didn't kind of attract that many people to their careers fairs or anything like that. So there wasn't a huge amount of help there, but it was more chatting to my professors, and rather than going through the career departments in the university. I found that the professors were quite helpful, and they were always helpful to give advice on what they thought I should do, and that's kind of where I got it from, my supervisors, rather than the kind of official career department. I wasn't interested in joining the NHS, and that's kind of the only people that they got in, as well as it was mostly there for like kind of the engineer students. It's a big engineering university, so there was lots of people for engineers, but there wasn't too many for life sciences people coming in. Just weren't attracting them, I guess. So my first job was a clinical trials assistant, working for a contract research organisation. It was quite a big step from learning about lots of stuff theoretically to going kind of on the ground, from the kind of the shop floor of clinical trials. So doing vital signs and doing lots of the day-to-day running of it was very different to what I'd been used to before. Coming from a theoretical background of clinical research and then going to see how it happens was quite a big shock for me. So while I was doing that, I tried to kind of get myself into some of the more interesting stuff. So I tried to get myself onto the scheduling department and trying to do more stuff which I found interesting. After that, I kind of worked as a medical writer, which I enjoyed a lot more. So that was kind of preparing lots of the documents, doing a little bit more of the writing and looking into the research behind stuff, and kind of either translating that into like lay language for our volunteers or applying for ethics boards, and I found that a lot more interesting. I found that more science background and writing a lot more interesting for me, and so I did that for a little bit. Then I kind of worked as a clinical quality manager, so that was like a general clinic manager, so that was supervising the trials and helping them to get running properly, did training for that and training new staff. And then now moving on to this position, which kind of a little bit combines a lot of these things. So as an approval, it encompasses everything you need to approve and to set up a trial. So I do like ethics board submissions, I do some of the writing, which I really enjoyed as a medical writer, and setting up sites. All this kind of setup is something I really enjoy doing. For me, not really. I kind of worked in my job a week after I handed in my dissertation. It was really quick for me, which was kind of very useful, very kind of, I think that's quite rare, but I had quite a fair amount of difficulty when I first graduated from my undergraduate. That's another reason why I wanted to do for my masters. I was applying for stuff for about a year or so, not really getting anywhere, so I thought I'd want to continue learning more stuff, and therefore maybe getting a master's might help me get a job afterwards as well. Yes, I would say so. I'd say it differentiates yourself a little bit, and there's lots and lots of people who have degrees now, and it's all kind of trying to make yourself look a bit better than somebody else, and that little bit more of knowledge you gain, and it's very different doing a master's to undergraduate as well. I feel you might come across a bit better. It's It's a bit more like a job when you're doing a master's. I think that's something that they look for as well. There's no point doing a master's for no reason. Either I think you should do it because either it's something you're really interested in, or you feel that it's going to progress you in some way, because you're going to need that motivation to complete your master's anyway, I think. So I would say, obviously depends what part of the country you're in. So if you're working in London, for instance, you'd be expecting to earn a little bit more than you would somewhere else in the country. You'd also expect to earn a little bit more for private industry rather than NHS as well. That's what I found when I was applying for jobs. But I'd say most people probably be expecting between about £18,000 and £24,000 when they first come out from university, I'd say. I was kind of midway in between those when I first started. I'd say like maybe 5 to 10 years probably down the line, I'd say. It depends what your expectations are in general. If you're looking for the big cash as well, that's going to take quite a long time, but you're going to earn like a fair amount. It's not a crazily underpaying industry, but you shouldn't be expecting to make massive bank on this. So I'd expect it to probably go to like between 25 and 28, I'd probably say. Just a little bit more. The experiences you gain depends kind of how ambitious you are and how much you're taking on new responsibilities as well in a company as well. Like, they're always going to be looking for people who are kind of a bit hungrier for other stuff. So if that's something that you are looking for, then I think you'll probably be expecting to be earning a little bit more maybe. It's more, yeah, the more responsibility you get, the more they're going to pay you in the end. I guess it depends how specialised you've become over your career, but I'd say probably like 5 years, probably. It depends what you're going into and what you're looking for. It's always going to be quite competitive, this area, but I think, yeah, when you're getting to 5-10 years down the road, I think you're going to be headhunted a little bit more, and you're going to find it easier to get jobs in general because you've had that experience in there and you kind of stuck with it. So, finding jobs when you're in industry, it's still tricky. So it can still take you quite a long time to find another job if you're looking for one. I think the maid thing is going through the kind of company online portals. It's so easy for you to fall through the gaps if you're not writing exactly what they're down, or you don't meet with their algorithms, and you just completely lose through it. I feel like it's definitely worth chatting to the HR departments and trying to get on a conversation with the recruiter who's recruiting for the position. I feel like the way that I got mine was that I was in conversation with the recruiter. I was originally up for one job, and then I didn't get that one, but I carried on chatting with the recruiter, and I feel like that bypass, like trying to make yourself stand out when there's hundreds and hundreds of online applications come in is the big thing. It's just when there's so many people applying for jobs, it's really easy to get lost in the pile. In terms of resources at university, again, I had really good relationships with my lecturers, and they were always happy to look over my CVs and cover letters and give any advice that they had as well. When I was at Imperial, they had quite a good careers department, and they would come in and give us lectures. They gave us resources on how to find the names of companies, because that's a big thing I found when I first moved into the industry. You've heard of the big names, but there's absolutely hundreds of companies out there, but you don't know where to look to actually find the names of them, because you can't apply for them if you don't know what they're called. Yeah, other than that, it can be really hard to get a job unless it definitely does help knowing somebody in the company who's happy to refer you or something like that, but you gotta kind of stick with it, and yeah, just trying to make yourself stand out. I would probably have started my applications earlier than I did for jobs. I was just focusing on my studies and exams and stuff. I didn't really apply for anything. I didn't really think about it until I finished, which I think was a little bit late. I would have started a little bit early, tried to get on some of those graduate rotation schemes or those kind of jobs. I missed out on a lot of those January applications and that kind of stuff, because I was just concentrating on my studies. I would have definitely changed that. Tried to get into it a little bit earlier. I think that may have helped me with my undergraduate getting my job after my undergraduate, but I think I probably would have done that.
Do you think you had the capacity to do that though?
Probably. I was a little bit. I don't know. When I was doing my studies, I was just really concentrated on that. It's definitely very difficult doing the same things. I suppose I didn't even really do much research about what I'd do until I finished my degree, and I kind of found myself a little bit lost trying to figure out what I was going to do. But I wish I'd spent more time thinking about where I was going to kind of go in with this on my undergraduate. And I think it was that focus after I'd had that experience in my masters, which kind of came through, and that's when I kind of got the job a little bit quicker because I was aware of what I wanted to do afterwards and kind of went and did it a little bit more.
In regards to your career pathway now, is there anything you do differently after you started working up until this point? I mean, you've been through it. Like at the start, you didn't know.
Yes.
So you were aware, and like you got your first job as a CTA, and of course you've then done like a number of different roles, and now you're working like for a different company. Knowing the information you know now, if you had this information 2.5 years ago, what path would you do? Anything differently, or would you continue?
I suppose the medical writing part of the job I really enjoyed. I probably would have tried to go in there a little bit earlier and maybe looked for those positions a little bit sooner. I didn't really realise that was an industry I could work in, so I would have probably gone into that a little bit earlier and done more of the stuff I enjoyed doing that. Find an area in this industry that you really enjoy. I feel like you'll be a lot more motivated to do your job and do it well if you're actually wanting to do it. That's kind of how I see myself, what I see myself doing. Like, you're always going to be better at your job when you kind of enjoying it a little bit more. Even obviously all jobs have bits you don't want to do, but if you feel like you're on the kind of track you want to be on, I feel like you're going to be a lot more motivated and do your job better. And then that's obviously going to make you look better to any employer as well, because you're motivated and doing your job well and you're enjoying it. So that's the advice I would give. Advice for interviews, I'd say definitely answering with the kind of star format of answering questions really good. It really focuses your answers and gets to the important things they actually want to hear. So it goes like situation, task, action and resolution. So when you're going through all these steps, you're saying everything that they kind of want to hear, and it kind of focuses your mind. It stops you rambling so much. I would also say taking in a notepad with you, having all your questions you want to ask written down, having jots down from your CV and the job advert, even like words that they used in the advert and their mission statement. If you have this all down in front of you, you have it easily accessible, so you can have a quick look down and just remind yourself what you want to focus on and what you want to talk about. And in that way, you can be a lot less flustered, and you're not going to get in that situation where you finish a job interview and like, oh, I really wish I'd said that. If you have all this stuff you're planning to write down in front of you, you're less likely to miss out on something which you really wanted to talk about.
That's interesting, because some people feel like they'll be judged if they take notes with them.
I think I think it shows that you're well prepared for your interview. I don't think it would look bad.
I agree.
So I was up about me, almost like an 18th century man trapped in a 21st century man's body. I like to pickle and like preserve my own food, brew my own beer, like to go cycling, don't like to use cars so much. Yeah, I really love cooking and just like making things, so I like figuring out how I could make sauerkraut, for instance. Like, what is that? How do you even do that? So I like doing that and like making hot sauce and making delicious things. And like making beer, make it really strong, it might taste terrible, but you know, have fun doing it anyway. Come and talk to me, we'll share some recipes.
Hi, I'm Kira Gorey and I work as a clinical research assistant in a large pharma company. I represent the S in STEM and I've been working in this industry for about 3 years.